Good morning, fans of the new network. It is James Ernest of Sarah's Playlist. Our guest today is Molly Tuttle. She's a singer, songwriter, multi-instrument performer, and we are going to be discussing her award-winning album, City of Gold, and her upcoming performance at Winter Wondergrass in Colorado. Molly,
Hello.
thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I was gonna say we got a lot to talk about. Just you're very fascinating, so we are excited. I was gonna say usually with our guests we have like 5, 10 questions. Nope, we got a bunch for you because we find this exciting. And just like exciting, I understand that you are excited about the big upcoming event at Winter Wondergrass.
I
And
am.
Mhm.
Yeah, this will be my third winter Wondergrass. Well, I've technically my fourth, but it's my third one in Steamboat. I did the Tahoe one
Oh,
last
cool.
year. Um, and it's so much fun. It's one of a kind because it's the coldest festival I've ever played. It's the
Mhm.
only time I've played outdoors in the winter at a ski resort. And it's just awesome. I love the people who come to this festival. I feel like Colorado has the best music fans, and then I get to see a bunch of my friends who are on the bill as well.
That is cool. Yeah, I was gonna say, and I can imagine the fans that do show up, in that cold are so enthusiastic and so passionate about the music.
Yeah, everyone's bundled up. They're all having a good time out there, and it's just really fun. And then if I'm remembering right, I think later on in the evening, people kind of move indoors and have little inside shows at a hotel
Cool.
after hours, which is always cool too.
Nice. So, how did your family's love of music inspire you?
Well, it kind of got me started playing music. My grandfather played the banjo and he taught my dad how to play, and then my dad taught me how to play guitar when I was a kid. I picked up the guitar when I was 8 years old. My two younger brothers both played when we were growing up, and so we had a family band, and music was just a really big part of our life around the house.
So, how were you able to learn at such a young age? Was it because of the family influence?
I always wanted to play a musical instrument ever since I was, like 4 years old. I wanted to play fiddle, and then I took some piano lessons. Then when I started on guitar, it really clicked for me because my dad was just showing me stuff around the house. It didn't feel like this chore where I had to go to my lesson and they give me all this homework to practice every day. All of a sudden, it felt like this fun activity to do. And then I think my younger brother Sullivan saw me playing and he wanted to play, and then we got to play together, and then our youngest brother Michael started playing too when he got a little older. So then all three of us were playing around the house all the time. It was a very musical house. Probably
That
kind
is
of annoying
awesome.
for our mom to listen to at times.
Oh gosh, yeah, sounds like a wonderful place to grow up at.
Yeah.
So, how did your time in the family band, the Tuttles, prepare you for your career in music?
Um, it was how I really learned to stand on stage and play, and like learn how to prepare for a show, make the set list, rehearse. We even traveled to a few festivals where we played sets. And so I think that just kind of showed me, how to be the basics of being a professional musician and showing up on time, playing the right length of set, stuff like that. And yeah, but I really wasn't like the front person of the band. My dad did most of the MC work. I was a pretty shy kid, so I didn't really like talking on stage. And that was something that kind of came to me later on. Took me years to really feel comfortable up on stage as like the front person or the center of attention.
Oh, definitely, I know what you mean, but it sounds like that was an invaluable experience with the family.
Yeah, definitely. Hmm.
So, of course, everyone associates you with guitar because you're known as one of the greatest guitar players in the world. But what other instruments do you play?
I play banjo. That's like kind of the only other one I'm proficient on. I can kind of mess around with anything with strings. Mandolin, I know a few chords. I can mess around. I play some tunes on the mandolin, but banjo's the one where I could like join a bluegrass jam on banjo and hold my own pretty good.
Oh, cool. I always thought it would be fun to go see Steve Martin play his banjo.
Yeah, I actually saw him play when I was a kid. He came to the Harley Strictly Bluegrass Festival in San Francisco. and I got to see him in front of a massive crowd because it's a free festival in Golden Gate Park, and it just thousands and thousands of people go, and it was awesome.
That is so cool. Heck yeah. When of course, you had the family experience, but then you also had professional education at Berkeley. What did you
Yeah.
learn from your time at Berkeley?
I really just focused on practicing. That was kind of the time in my life where I had the most time to just sit around at home and play the guitar and write songs. I focused on guitar playing and songwriting mostly. I didn't really do much voice stuff. Um, and then I also just met a lot of people who became longtime friends, and like Bronwyn, who plays in my band, we were at Berkeley at the same time and we met there. And um, yeah, I think it was just like an invaluable experience to kind of prepare me for the outside world. And then also just like I had all these friends all of a sudden. So many of them moved to Nashville around the same time I did, and gave me this community that I still have.
That is awesome. Yeah, I was going to say having friends is huge in the business.
Definitely.
Obviously, collaboration is also an important part of the music
Yeah.
industry. Why is it so important?
I think because, well, I think about other styles of art, like if you're a writer or like, let's say you're a painter, you are kind of like alone doing this thing. And music's kind of like that too. Like when you're practicing and honing in on stuff, you do spend a lot of time alone. So I feel like a lot of people who are musicians are introverts, but then you also have to go out on the stage and have a band and do this really extroverted thing, which is kind of unusual. But I feel like since most people play with other musicians, that just creates this like really social aspect to being a professional musician. And I think we all love to, collaborate with people, with different people. It's so fun to like play music with someone totally outside your genre and see what that sounds like. I love getting to, play my guitar styles with someone totally outside the box. And um I think it's fun. You go to like music festivals, you tour, and you meet these other musicians out on the road, and that's where most of my collaborations come from, just kind of meeting people through touring or through hanging out in Nashville where I live. Yeah.
During your time with the Goodbye Girls, you got to go over to Sweden and to see the hometown of one of your colleagues, Lena.
Yeah.
What was that like? I mean, obviously you've been to many great places, but I can imagine that's probably one of the highlights.
Yeah, definitely. I think Sweden just has this special place in my heart because I got to spend so much time there with someone who's from the country. Usually, like when I've toured in other countries, it's really cool, but I almost feel like a tourist in a way where I don't have someone on the inside, like showing me around, getting to meet all their family and friends. And that was really cool. We stayed at her parents' house, and they live in like the countryside in the west of Sweden. And it was just so beautiful. It was like you kind of just, we got to see how people lived in the more kind of rural, spread out areas of the country, um, which is another thing that you don't get to see too much on tour. Usually you're going to the big cities and
Mhm.
playing a show and then leaving the next day. And I think we did some rehearsals at her parents' house in Bollnäs, Sweden. And it was just so fun. It's so cozy. They baked us these Swedish fika buns. We would have in Sweden they have this thing called fika where like 5 times a day you like stop and have coffee and like a little pastry.
Ooh,
And they're big on cardamom, so like all the paste it's like a cinnamon roll, but it is
mm,
all cardamom instead of cinnamon. It's really good.
ooh, that sounds great. Yeah. So it's kind of like their version of tea time.
Yeah, totally. Except it's all coffee. They drink so much coffee. And I remember asking, "Do you have any decaf?" And they all like laughed at me. They're like, "What is that? What are you talking about?" Because I could usually only drink like one coffee a day.
I was going to say you've worked with so many great talented artists. Of course, you were part of that super group, First Ladies of Bluegrass. How much fun was that?
It was really fun. Yeah, and we've talked about doing some more stuff down the line. But yeah, we got together to play the Rocky Grass festival in Colorado. Then we did Telluride, and then we did a couple more shows. and we've gone into the studio a little bit for tracks here and there. We did a track on Missy Rain's album that won the IBMA Song of the Year, and um yeah, so I'm sure we'll get to do more stuff down the line. But it's a really cool project because it's like feels like you have these different generations of women who came up in this genre, from Allison, who was like the first woman to ever win an IBMA award on her instrument, and then Missy won one, and then Becky and Sierra. And Sierra and I have known each other since we were about 11 and 12 years old. We met at like a Kids on Bluegrass show that we were both doing. And so I just love getting to make music with her because she's really someone I've looked up to since I was a little kid. She's on, I don't, we're like the same age, but when I first met her, she just seemed so, she was already a total prodigy, so amazing on her instrument, a total pro. Like, she's so friendly, so just like has this great personality on and off stage. Um, so I was just really like in awe of her growing up. And then when I get to play music with her, I'm like, this is super cool.
That is awesome. On several of your projects, you're the sole contributor and writer of the song. Like, for example, Rise. What is your writing process?
Yeah, so it's changed through the years. When I first recorded my EP, Rise, that was like the first time I ever recorded my own songs under my name. And that one I pretty much wrote all of them on my own, except for one song, Friend and a Friend, I wrote with um a friend, Corby Lanker, right after I moved to Nashville. That was kind of like my first Nashville co-write experience. And then since I've been here, I've just started writing with other people more and more. And now that's like mainly what I do. I write with my partner Ketch a lot, and we wrote every song on my last album, City of Gold, together. I just like it because you have someone to bounce ideas off of. When I write alone, it's like sometimes I get so in my head, I'm like, I don't even know if this is good. I start writing about like weird things that I'm thinking about, and like I'm like, I don't even know if people can relate to this. I also just like writing with people who have a different writing style than me because it kind of helps push me outside um my comfort zone, I guess. So during the
Exactly.
pandemic, I started doing like so many co-writes over FaceTime or Zoom like this. We'd be writing a song, and that's when I feel like I really got the hang of writing with other people. At first it was really intimidating, like I didn't want to show them my ideas, or like, throw out a lyric idea that might be stupid or something, but you kind of just have to keep this constant dialogue going, and it's like a lot of fast back and forth. So I was doing like 3 or 4 co-writes a week when I was off the road, and I feel like that really helped my writing, and that's kind of how I wrote my album Crooked Tree.
So why did you sign with Nonesuch Records?
That was, I think, like 3 years ago. Yeah.
Oh, no, no, why?
Oh, why? Um, they've been a label that I've admired for a long time. I remember when I first was like getting started in my career and thinking like it'd be cool to have a record label. Um, I was just looking around at like what label my favorite bands were on, and a lot of them were on Nonesuch, and a lot of them from like different genres too. So that was a big part of it for me, was like I want to feel free to explore sounds, record whatever kind of album I want to, and they're really artist friendly in that way. They let you kind of do what you want, and they have such a wide array of artists in different genres that um you can kind of be a chameleon and kind of do your own thing a little bit. Like when I signed with them, I had no idea I was going to make a straight up bluegrass record, and then I was writing all these songs. I was like, I think this is the direction I'm going, and they were like totally cool with that.
Nice. My favorite video of yours is the Down Home Dispensary.
Oh,
Was it
nice. Thanks.
welcome? Was it intentionally a Schoolhouse Rock tribute?
Yes. Yeah, my merch company came up with that idea. They like designed, well, first I was like, I think when we were writing the song, I kept imagining like Schoolhouse Rock, like an episode about legalizing weed. I thought that would be really funny. So I wrote that down on my list of like merch ideas, and someone at my merch company designed the cartoons, and then we're like, we should make this like a little Schoolhouse Rock style cartoon. So that's what we did.
That was
But
cool.
yeah, it was definitely intentional. Hopefully we don't get sued by Schoolhouse Rock.
Yeah, because all you have to say, it was a parody of it. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, because that's the beauty of it. As long as you call something a parody, it can. You,
Totally.
yeah. Let's see. During your career, you've won numerous awards. Which one has meant the most to you?
Um, wow, that's like, I mean, I think winning the Grammy the last 2 years for a bluegrass record has been insane, like something that I didn't think could ever happen. And then um the very first time I ever won like a real award was when I won Guitar Player of the Year at IBMA. I was 24, and it just felt like a real sign to me that I was like, okay, I'm gonna keep going down this path. Like I think when I was starting out, it was so hard to even like book shows. I was doing everything on my own. I didn't have a team or anything, and that was just like a real kind of affirmation that people liked what I was doing, and I was gonna keep going.
Most people feel that 2021 was a bad year because of all the things that happened. However, for you, I would think it would be a good year because you were able to start your band and put it together, Golden Highway Band.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, tell us why they're your dream band.
Um, I just it was like this band that I felt like I could hear and see in my head. And then when I asked them, they all kind of shifted things around and agreed to tour with me, which was crazy. So they're all friends of mine. We've all been friends like in different ways for the past decade probably. I met them all when I was like in my late teens, early 20s. Um and it's just really cool. I think each person in the band brings such a unique vibe and personality. They're all great performers as well as being great musicians and singers, and um so yeah, it's just fun. I remember we when we first got together and played, we had this really like great energy and kind of chemistry right off the bat. Um our first couple shows were in I guess 2020 wait 2022. That's when we first played our shows, and the first couple of them had this like kind of chaotic energy where every song was like starting here and then going like whoa, like getting so fast and energetic. I think just because we were all so excited. Um, but yeah, it's been awesome, and it's hard to believe that we've only really been a band for like 2 years.
That is awesome. Well, I was going to say it's definitely going in the right direction. I mean, it don't get better than winning Grammys. I mean,
Yeah, it's been
gosh,
super
yeah.
exciting. And on the record Crooked Tree, it was really exciting to win the Bluegrass Grammy, and but this one was even cooler because everyone in my band now gets the Grammy,
Oh,
because they
cool.
didn't all play on Crooked Tree, but we all made they played on every track on City of Gold. So um I was hoping that they could all take home a trophy as well, which
That is so
happened, and it was
cool.
so awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, because that is one of the things. A lot of times they don't have the actual band do the studio version, but I really think that's cool how you did have your band do the actual album.
Yeah, totally. I when I made the first bluegrass record, I knew I wanted to have like a band name to kind of separate it from my solo stuff, but I didn't have my band put together. But I was like, I really want to like create this new project and kind of make a statement that this is something different for me. So I put the band name on the album, but Dominic is the only one who played throughout the whole album. Bronwyn played on one track, but I hadn't like put together my touring band yet. So then when we got out on the road, I was like, well, I have to make another album now because this is too much fun playing with you guys, and I want to really like capture the sound of all of us playing together, make a real band record. So that's the first time I ever made an album and didn't, hire out studio musicians and people that I didn't actually play with on the road. This is my first kind of like real band record.
City of Gold is a colorful fable populated by gold miners, fortune tellers, gold rush Kate. You're so great at creating spellbinding stories and characters in your songs. Have you ever considered turning that into a book or a movie or TV show, something like that?
I mean, I actually have this idea that it could be cool to make a children's book out of a couple of my songs. Because I feel like my song Crooked Tree, I feel like the lyrics could translate into like pictures pretty well.
Mhm.
Um, and it's like has a message that I feel like kids would like. So, and then another one of my songs, Big Backyard, I feel like could be a kid's book too. That's kind of the only thing. I never thought about making like a movie. That could be awesome as well, but probably takes more budget and and time. But that would be really
Definitely.
cool.
But yeah, they're phenomenal. I've really enjoyed it. And I just really think it's interesting the story behind it, how that a field trip when you were in school inspired City of Gold.
Yeah, yeah, Ketch and I were just talking and I forget what we were talking about, but I was just like, yeah, I went on this field trip where they teach us to you like pan for gold in the river and everyone gets like a little speck of gold because there is still like a lot of gold in the rivers, but there's not very many like big chunks of it. It's just like little flakes.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, the guy who was teaching us how had this huge like gold nugget on a necklace and we just came up with that line, Gold Rush Kate from the Golden State with a nugget around my neck. like paying tribute to that guy's like crazy gold nugget necklace.
Nice. And then shoot, you like we've talked about, you've collaborated with some amazing folks. One of the ones I really enjoyed was Yosemite with Dave
Oh,
Matthews. Is that based on a real road trip?
it's kind of loosely based on I drove across the country to get home to California during the pandemic, but I also took like a ton of road trips to Yosemite growing up. So, it's kind of based on, it's also like when you're in a car with people and you want to get out of the car and they start annoying you.
I think what I think is neat is how, because I'm from Kentucky, how you were able to kind of do a backwards version of Alice in Wonderland.
Oh, thanks. That was another really fun one to write. And we kind of wrote that with Ketch's band Old Crow Medicine Show in mind, but then it became like more of a song for me just because I've always loved the story of Alice in Wonderland. I remember it was like one of my favorite books as a kid, and I remember my school put a play, an Alice in Wonderland play. That was like one of the only times I've ever acted in my life was in the play Alice in Wonderland. Um, so yeah, and then we've been covering White Rabbit on tour a little bit. So I was like, we should write like a bluegrass version of White Rabbit.
Nice. In your song, When the Race is Run, you use the race as a metaphor for life. I always love songs that do that. Um, do you have a family member that inspired that? Somebody that you miss? Because like the song's about missing somebody.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely lost important people in my life. We wrote that song when one of Ketch's family members was really sick and possibly was going to pass away soon. So, yeah, I mean, we both wanted to write one of those like classic songs that um we had just gone to this writer round and played the song I Shall Be Released,
Mhm.
and that's what kind of inspired this song as well.
And then, like should we keep going back to all the cool people you worked with? Jerry Douglas. How great was to have him co-produce City of Gold?
It was awesome. Yeah, now I've worked on two records co-producing with him, and I just feel like we have a really good flow together. We like now have spent a lot of time together, which is crazy to think about because he's one of my biggest heroes. Um, and yeah, I just wanted the whole band to get to work with him as well on this second record. And he was just so great at setting the tone of like, is it going to be fun? We're going to make a great album. And then he also has amazing ears for bluegrass. And when people would play solos, he could kind of tell if it was like, if they had a better solo or better playing in them still, or if it was time to move on. So it's just really helpful to have someone who's like such a master and such kind of like has so much experience playing this kind of music.
son Owen has Eagle Barrett syndrome, or they call it a prune belly, and he goes to the conventions every year. The conventions allow him to feel free and let his guard down and spend time with kids and adults that have the same challenges and experiences as he does on a daily basis. The convention means a lot to him. If you would like, and if not, feel free not to. But if you'd like, feel free to share about a similar experience that you've had.
Yeah, I go to this because I've had alopecia since I was a kid, which basically it's an autoimmune disease where your hair falls out. Some people lose like one patch of hair and then it grows back. For me, I lost all my hair and it never grew back. So, um, I've worn wigs since I was 15 or 16, and I've basically had no hair since I was 3 years old. Um, and when I was a kid, I used to go to a conference. There's an annual conference, and actually last year it was in Denver, which was really fun.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and it kind of moves around throughout the country each year. It's in a different spot. So I went a couple times as a kid with my mom, and it was like the only time in my life when I got to be around people who looked like me as a kid. So it was just this huge confidence boost. I don't think everyone realizes how weird it is to kind of grow up with something that makes you look different, something that makes people treat you different. It's kind of like it's a weird experience. So then when I was an adult, like in my early 20s, I was just kind of struggling with it still. I felt like I still hadn't really accepted this condition. So I went back to the conference, and they asked me to play some music throughout the weekend, and it was just really helpful for me and kind of set me on this new path of like, this is who I am. I'm not going to be ashamed of this. I met people who were so confident and, you know, living life to their fullest. I realized that it wasn't going to be something that would hold me back at all. So then last year I got to go in Denver. It's called the National Alopecia Areata Foundation. They do this annual conference, and it's small. It's like a few hundred people, but it's like it's like a rare condition, especially when it gets to the point of losing all your hair. That's pretty rare. So
Mhm.
there's really not that many people who experience this. Um, but yeah, I got to give like their keynote speech last year, and I talked about my song Crooked Tree and how it kind of is the message is about like embracing who you are. And um, yeah, it was a really cool experience. Got to meet people of all ages with alopecia and got to like play for the kids, and it was super fun, and it's always really uplifting.
That's awesome. It has been a pleasure having you today on our show, Molly.
Thank
Before we
you.
let you go, where on social media, where on the web, where can our listeners find out more about you?
Yeah, anywhere Molly Tuttle on Instagram, Twitter, I guess X it's called now. Um, Facebook, Threads. Don't know if I'm forgetting it. YouTube. And then my website is mollytuttlemusic.com. You can find all my tour dates, and I hope to see you all on the road sometime.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.